Let's welcome Dr. Ruhi Satija to enlighten us on the topic named Depression Demystified. Dr. Ruhi Satija. Hi.
Hi, hello everyone. How are
How are
you?
you? Good. How are you, ma'am?
Very well.
Perfect.
Thank you for having me.
Thank you. So, Dr. Ruhi, I would like to know, before going for the topic, I would like to know about your journey as a psychiatrist. I mean, how it's been.
All right. So, psychiatry is a passion of mine. I was very interested in, why humans behave the way that they do from a very young age. And it was always a dream that eventually I would either become a psychologist or a psychiatrist. And then because I went into medicine, eventually I am a psychiatrist today. It has been wonderful. Of course, it is very rewarding because the type of patients that we see and the type of pain that they go through, it is unbearable to even imagine, right? But then when you help them, when you treat them, it is equally rewarding because they come to you with years of pain together. Especially in our country, there's a lot of stigma attached to this field, and people don't usually walk into your clinic the first day they start suffering. Unlike any other medical illness where today you have fever, tomorrow you are in the hospital, people come to you after years or months of suffering, and then when you tell them that all you need is just this medicine or this psychological treatment, it creates wonders, and within weeks they start feeling better. So it's very, very rewarding, and of course you learn a lot. That's what I have seen, that I myself have grown a lot after coming through this field because I understand people better. I understood myself better. So it's very rewarding. Equally painful to see people in that state, but definitely very rewarding in the end. Yeah.
Right. So whenever you get the feedback, it is really satisfying your job.
Yeah. Yes. That is the ultimate thing that I strive for, that in the evening I get that message that today I'm feeling better. So that is what helps me sleep in the night.
Right. Perfect. Sounds good. So, Dr. Rui, let's talk about this depression thing. We want to understand this in a very simplified way, because there are a lot of people who are using this depression in a very light way. Like they said that, oh, I'm feeling depressed now. So, we literally need to understand when we call there's a depression to the person. What is depression actually?
Right. Okay. Thank you for this question, and let's once and for all settle it today, because as you said, there is a lot of confusion in the society, because especially using this term very loosely, something goes wrong today, you are feeling upset and you're like, I'm feeling depressed today, right? But that's not depression, and I feel it's actually very unfair to the people who are actually clinically depressed to just label them that you'll just feel better, because then the misconception is also that, all right, the person is just lazy, the person has a negative thinking. We don't understand what they are going through. Instead, we just judge them and label them. The common suggestions that these people will get is just go and exercise, you will feel better. Just go and party and you will feel better. But that's not what depression is, right? Even, of course, sadness is one of the symptoms of depression. But sadness, the way you and I will feel in our daily life if something goes wrong, and the level of sadness that somebody who is clinically depressed will feel, there's a huge difference. And plus, along with sadness, we have a plethora of symptoms. As we talk along, I'll be explaining all of these symptoms that are possible in depression. There is a set of 9 to 10 symptoms, and we use at least 5 have to be there to clinically diagnose the patient that this is depression. It's not like today you come to me crying that you are feeling upset and you are depressed. No, that's not depression. That is sadness because of something. And the main difference that people have to understand is, the misconception is that your life is perfect. Why are you depressed? Right? We don't need any trigger.
Yeah, whenever people see there are people around him, he's earning money. But still, why? Why you having depression?
Yeah. Exactly. Because we don't understand what it is. That is the problem. We feel that something has to go wrong for somebody to feel sad or upset about it, and that's what depression is. Absolutely not. It's far from the real answer, right? It's a biological illness just like any other biological or medical illness, and we have a biological basis for it. That is when these things start happening. So if I have to explain what depression is, starting with the symptoms that we see, the first, as I said, it is, the sadness that is beyond comparison of the sadness that you and I must have felt, even in the worst of the scenario, it's not the same. Apart from that, the dominant symptom that we see in depression is anhedonia, which is that the people stop feeling pleasure in the activities they used to feel earlier, right? They will commonly say that I don't enjoy anything anymore. Nothing makes me happy. Whatever they used to do earlier when they were not depressed, now it will sound like a baggage to them that, it doesn't give me the pleasure. Literally, you will see a shift in the person's personality. Personality as in it's, of course, temporary change, but literally it will be a whole different person only. You won't be able to understand, right? And it happens fast, and we need a clinical criteria of 2 weeks to diagnose clinical depression or the major depressive disorder. Apart from this, there are multiple other symptoms, like the common one being sleep disturbance. There can also be that the person can't just go to sleep, or there can be that even if they are going to sleep, they wake up really frequently in the middle of the night, or they wake up really early, right? Sleep disturbances are quite commonly associated. Then we have cognitive symptoms. That essentially means that your thinking capacity has lowered. You cannot make decisions, you cannot think clearly, and if the severity is low, even the normal tasks that you have to get up and take your bath and brush your teeth and get ready, that itself becomes a task. They will say that they just can't get out of the bed, they can't think what to do next, and then they are judged as being lazy, that he just doesn't want to do anything. That's an actual symptom. You have lethargy in depression. The body feels like a stone. Yes.
Yeah, they were physical symptoms, and these are the cognition symptoms in a person.
Yes, thinking capacity. In the physical symptoms as well, you feel a lot of, first thing that you see is the lethargy. The limbs will feel very heavy. It's difficult to move. You see a lot of restlessness as well in them. They can't sit at a place. They don't feel comfortable at a place. It's called psychomotor retardation or psychomotor agitation. These symptoms, where either the body just slows down, or otherwise it's just so restless that you are not able to do anything. Such symptoms are there. Your appetite changes. You're not able to either eat properly, or some people go on binge eating patterns when they are depressed, because that gives them some sense of relief. So all of these symptoms are commonly seen in depression. Of course, everybody will have different set of symptoms and different degrees of symptoms. And if we don't treat it, if it is staying for long term, nobody is taking care of it, then of course the worst of it, we have the suicidal ideations, the death wishes and suicidal attempts. Yeah, these are the patterns that we see depression presenting in population.
So the point is not necessarily that everybody will be having the same symptoms.
Yes.
People can have the different symptoms and they have the depression. Exactly. And one major point is, it is not necessary that you have everything around you, you have success in life, still you can be depressed.
Yes. The trigger is not necessary. You don't need something happening practically for you to be depressed. It is a biological thing. It happens because of various chemical changes in the brain, which I'll explain in a short while, which causes you to feel these things or have all these symptoms.
Yeah. Okay, sounds good. Thank you so much for making this clear, that who can have the depression and what is depression. Depression is not just the sadness you and I are feeling at a particular point of the time. Yeah. Perfect. So now I just wanna, my second question is, initially, when there is no depression, it means there is a disturbance in the emotions and in the thoughts, right? So before the depression, there are some psychological changes are happening in the body. So when and how it becomes the disorder?
Right.
How it becomes the disorder?
Wonderful question. So, as I said, the psychological thoughts that are commonly seen in somebody who has depression, there is a triad. There is a hopelessness, helplessness, and the worthlessness. Of course, there are many more, but this is the common triad. Either they'll feel that they are not worthy of something, or they see there is no point in life, there is no hope left in life, or otherwise they are very tricky about the future, that something bad might happen. Even if the trigger is there or the trigger is not there, it starts with a little bit of emotional instability. You start feeling a bit low, you start feeling a bit disturbed, small things will bother you more, you might get irritable and angry over it. Basically the person is able to make out that I'm not as happy as I used to be. The level of functioning starts reducing, and then of course if it keeps on increasing, it becomes a clinical depression. For the clinical depression, we need a group of symptoms to diagnose it. But if you don't have all of them, you have just sadness and all, we have a whole spectrum of it. It's not like you'll directly jump to clinical depression. For example, we have persistent depressive disorder, right? Dysthymia, in which the similar patterns are there, but they are a little less intensity, but for longer duration. As much as 2-3 years it will go on, but because the people are functional and they don't even understand what is happening with them, they just feel that, I don't know why I have become like this. That is a confusion they have. But essential point that they can see is whatever the level of happiness they used to feel, now they don't. That is an indication that they have to take that no, something is wrong with it.
Right. So on initial level, when there is a disturbance in the thoughts, in the emotions, or if it is for the longer period, as long as 15 days, so it means we need to think about it, we need to talk to some psychologist or the psychiatrist, we need to think about it, right?
Yes, 2 weeks is the clinical criteria time that we take.
Yeah, perfect. So do we have the different types of depression, different, how do we say, are there criteria of the depression?
Right. Yeah. So types, it's criteria also, and then types are also there. So for example, the common one that we see in the whole population is the major depressive disorder, right? That is the clinical depression. That is simply called MDD or clinical depression, in which we see all these 9 and we need a few of them to diagnose, right? It is the most severe form of depression. Now, a milder form, as I said, is persistent depressive disorder, which is also called dysthymia. You can have any of these symptoms, but the intensity will be low and time duration will be much more. Essentially, to diagnose somebody with persistent depressive disorder, we use the criteria of 2 years of having all these symptoms, right? Then we have different types of depression as well. For example, there is high functioning depression, which is very contrasting to the clinical depression. Now see, it is called high functioning because somebody who has depression, they have all these symptoms, but it's not as severe, so the daily activities or the work that they do is preserved. They are able to function normally, but internally they will not feel the happiness or the joy, and they have a feeling of emptiness in them. You'll hear this a lot with people who are working in corporate sectors or who have hectic schedules. They'll say that, this was my passion, I made this career, and now it just doesn't make me happy. And because they don't understand what is going on with them, what normally they do is try to change the job, or they have issues in the relationship, that the same person is not giving me joy. No, the relationship is fine. It is your perception who has changed. It is your feelings who have changed because of the problems that you are having, right? So normally what happens in OPD is they come for the relationship issues or they come for the work stress. But then when we talk to them, we see that no, it's high functioning depression instead of the relationship issue that we are talking about. Then another form of it is melancholic depression, right? In melancholic depression, one thing striking is that there is very less mood reactivity. What that is that the person, no matter what happy event is happening in front of them, they will just not have any reaction at all. Whereas in clinical depression also we see that normally they are low or normally they are sad, but if something happy is happening in front of them, they are able to feel it for a while. They are able to understand for some time that they are happy, right? But with melancholic depression, that reactivity is totally gone. And then there is one special category of depression that occurs in pregnancy or postpartum. So that is associated with childbirth. It is possible that the person already has a history of depression which gets aggravated because of the pregnancy, because there are a lot of hormonal changes in the body, or even postpartum, which is 4 weeks after delivery, you start having the depressive symptoms. So what the mother will come and complain is that I don't feel like taking care of my baby. Otherwise they'll have feelings of worthlessness, that I'm not a good enough mother, I'm not able to take care of the child as I would like, right? And there is then emotional neglect towards the child, they are not taking care of the child gets abandoned, or these sorts of things come in that. So these are the different types of depression that we see commonly in the patterns.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, so there are types of depression where intensity can be slow,
yeah,
but the time can be high,
yeah,
or maybe people are not aware that that can be the depression actually. People can
exactly.
understand it, the relationship problem or the work related problem, the workplace problem can be this, but it is not actually.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay.
Because see, they understanding that your thoughts are wrong is the most difficult thing, right? See, how does a human function? We think and we believe it. Now, if there is something that you are not feeling right, you will be the last person to judge yourself that am I responsible for it. What you do is, first of all, okay, what has changed around me which has made me feel this way? So if I'm not feeling happy for a long time, what will happen? I'll try to find faults in the partner. I'll try to find faults in the job or the work that I'm doing. I'll be the last person to think that no, some imbalance is going on in me, because people are just not aware of it. But when they come to a clinician, when they come to a psychiatrist or a psychologist, because we are trained to recognize these symptoms behind whatever they are saying, we recognize that no, see, you don't have an issue with the work, you need to work on yourself, right? This is how we progress. So yes, often people don't know that it is them who has the problem, and it's quite common.
Even they can look happy from outside,
right?
And people cannot recognize by just the face or by just the reactions, but inside that can be the depression. So if a person is feeling these things, like feeling emptiness, feeling hopelessness, or initially used to enjoy the job but right now is not doing, so they can consult with the psychiatrist, the psychologist for this, right?
Exactly. They don't realize it, and then because they are projecting it on something else, we call them in and then we explain them and then we treat it accordingly.
Okay. So is it recurring? If a person is having the depression, what are the chances that the person can have depression once again? And how it transmits to genes as well? I just want to know about it.
Right. Yeah. So yes, it is a biological illness. Somebody who is genetically prone to it, who has, sometimes they have a very strong family history of mental illnesses going on in their families. For example, depression is there, even bipolar mood disorder, which is mania and depression, right? Any other mental health disorder makes you more prone to get any other mental health issue as well. So definitely somebody who has a strong genetic history, depression is a recurring illness. But if you have been treated properly and then the medications, for example, if I start the medication, you start feeling better within 3-4 weeks, right? But it is recommended that you continue the medication for a particular duration, depending on how many cycles you have had in the past, which will prevent the next relapse. Right?
Okay.
The medications are made that way that whatever neurochemical imbalance that has happened in the brain, it will, cure it, so that the imbalance doesn't happen frequently again. And even if you get the episode, if you are on medications, the next episode will not be as strong as the last one.
Okay.
Yeah.
So I just want to come to the solution part. When we talk about the solution for the depression, there are two things. One is the psychotherapy and the counselings, and second is the medicines, right?
Right.
So I just want to know how these two different things work.
Okay, all right. So now we have to understand any mental health issue has a biopsychosocial model. Okay, what that means is there is something going wrong in the biology of you. For example, in depression, we have neurotransmitter imbalance, the common one being the serotonin or dopamine, right? The chemicals in the brain which are supposed to make you understand the positive thoughts or the positive events which ultimately make you feel happy are just reduced. So if they are not there, you can't feel the happiness. Okay, That is a biological model. Medications will take care of this. Medications are going to work on the neurotransmitter. So, for example, the common medication that we use in depression is SSRIs, selective serotonin reuptake inhibitors, right? So, what they do is the serotonin that has reduced in the body, which is causing the depression, it increases that. So, that is a biological thing. Then we have a psychosocial aspect, right? Psycho means psychology, that is your own mindset and the thoughts that you have. Social aspect means your environment, right? So for example, although we said that there, you don't need any trigger for depression to occur, but definitely the stress that you see in the society is something that needs to be worked on. For example, you have a family issue which constantly keeps you in stress. Even if it's not contributing directly to causing depression, it is maintaining it, right? It is definitely prolonging the illness or making it severe. So with the therapy, psychotherapy or counseling, whatever you want to call it, using these various techniques, we work on these two things: the psychology of the patient, working on the internal thoughts, internal dialogue. For example, I mentioned that there is a lot of worthlessness. They feel I am not enough. There is a worry of the future, that there is hopelessness. So we work on this with therapy, as well as if you have any family issues or relationship issues or workplace related issues, whatever stressors are there, the social model of mental illness, with therapy we do these things. The psychological part and social part of it, we take care of that. It's basically talk therapy, one-on-one visit. Sometimes we involve the family as well when we see the issues. So this is how it goes. Biologically, with the medications, we take care of the neurotransmitter part, and with the therapy and counseling, we take care of the psychological and social part of the illness. That's how the treatment should go, ideally. Yeah.
Okay. So Dr. Ree, we just want to know, is it necessary to take medicine at every level of the depression? No. Or we can just solve it by the psychotherapy or the counseling only?
Right, definitely. And this is also, a very important misconception that people have, that if I'll go to the office, I'll be prescribed medication, and then they don't come to the psychiatrist. It is a myth that every case of depression has to be treated with medications. It's not that. And especially if you will come early for treatment, you won't need medication. In depression, we have various scales to measure the level of depression. We divide it into three categories: the mild, moderate, and severe. Right? The mild and moderate means you have some symptoms, they are not that severe. In those cases, we only rely on counseling and psychotherapy. You don't need medications. But during the course of therapy, if you're not feeling better, and if we can see that there are viable cognitive or physical symptoms, that's when we start the treatment. That's when we start the medications. Whereas in severe case, if you have come very late, if you didn't go to a psychiatrist early on when the symptoms were mild, once it is severe, no matter what therapy I do, it's not going to function, because now the neurotransmitters are off, right? That's when we start with the medication, and then around 1 week or 2 weeks later, once the medication has started working, is when we recommend that you start counseling as well. See, the treatment has to be both ways. You can't miss on one thing. If I say just medications are enough, I don't agree with that. Okay? You need counseling. But then, if it is mild to moderate, you might not need medications depending on the physical symptoms that you have. But in severe cases, you need both. So it's not like if you will walk into my office, I'll just directly give you a prescription that, okay, these are the 2 tablets, take it. No, it doesn't work that way. You are clinically assessed for the symptoms, you are seen for the severity, you are done some, doing some tests. And mind you, these tests are not biological, like no blood test or CT, MRI. These are basically scales, question-answer based tests, which we do, with which we can assess that what is the severity of the symptoms, and then we choose a treatment accordingly.
Okay, so on initial level, or at mild or the moderate level, counseling can work. Even many times there is no need to take the medicines about it. But when the depression is the severe, the medicines are required along with the psychotherapy or the counseling.
Yes, exactly. So moderate to severe. In moderate, it's a clinical call. Looking at the patient, talking to the patient, and doing those assessments, we know that whether medications are required or not. In severe depression, no doubts about it. You require medications. So that's why come early, right? If you come as severe, maybe only counseling might be required.
Yeah. And there's also one misconception that people do not want to take medicines. You know, they think that there are a lot of side effects of the medicines. They do not want to go for it. And on the other side, there are various people who think that they do not understand the counseling. I mean, they do not know how it will be working, or it can benefit me or not. What these people will be doing, they'll be talking to me. I mean, how this will be working. So would you like to give some light on this, like how the counseling is working, and a message for the people who think that there are side effects of the medicines?
Right, exactly. Yep. So definitely this is a major roadblock that we have in a mental health disorder, because they just don't understand how the treatment works, and they don't understand how to go about it. Let me talk about the medications first. Definitely psychiatric medications are a little tricky. One problem that we have with medication is that it's not necessarily the first medication will work on you. Sometimes what happens is one medication, which is the most commonly that a doctor would prescribe in that case, doesn't work on you. Just like any other medical illness, you take an antibiotic, it didn't work, you try another one, right? We have to sometimes switch the medications. Coming to the side effects, these misconceptions are there because many, around, if you go 30-40 years back or 50 years back, when these medications started in psychiatry is a fairly new field, right? At that time, the medications that are there, which are we call them first generation, antidepressants or antipsychotics, those had a lot of side effects. That is true, right? But then that was the best thing that we had at that time. Right now, if you see, the medications are much more effective and much more sophisticated as well. The commonest side effects that, I've been practicing for a long time now, and the commonest side effects that I see is maybe they have acidity for 2-3 days, right? Maybe they have indigestion for 2-3 days. You take a simple antacid and you are fine. And then once, anyways, it's working on your brain. So it will take 2-3 days for the body to adapt to it, for the body to cope up with it. But then again, if it's not suiting you at all, it's not like the doctor is going to force feed you the medication. If there are side effects, just go to the doctor, get the medicine switched. As simple as that. We have so many medications. It's not like we have only one or two, and it's like the end term for you that okay, you have been started on this and that's it. It doesn't work that way, right? So the medications, yes, there are misconceptions that they will cause side effects. Then another misconception that they have is that it will change their personality, or if it will become addictive. That doesn't work that way. Okay. Ultimately, what it will do is it will bring out the original you. So it won't change your personality or anything. Sedation, yes, can be a side effect of many psychiatric medication, but that is manageable. We reduce the dose, we change the time of medication. Sometimes what happens is they take the tablet at 10 or 11 or 12 in the night. So obviously you're going to be drowsy in the morning. So what we do is we tell them to take it a bit early, or shift the medication in divided dose. That will prevent these side effects. But nobody is going to hook you up on a medication that is going to do more damage. If the doctor is prescribing you the medication, the doctor knows that it is going to benefit more than the side effects are the issue compared to whatever hell you are going through in your own life, right? Faith is easier than the mood symptoms that you have or the suicidal ideas that you have. Out of the two, if I have to prevent, I would prevent the suicidality instead of worrying about the acidity, right? That's how we make a clinical judgment. It's not like, it's a 10-12 years of training in medicine. It's not like we just know 2 tablets and we just pop it in your mouth. Doesn't work that way. Right? And when it comes to counseling, the talking part that you do with your friends and your family is very different from what happens in counseling. Now, what is if I go to somebody, or if my family member or friend, and I say I'm sad, what will they do? Take me for shopping, take me to a party. At that moment, I might even feel better. That I'm not saying it won't make me feel happy for some time.
There are various people who go to take drinks, who go to take cigarettes, they go to cannabis things and all.
And then that itself becomes a problem.
I'll
explain addictions as well.
Another problem, right?
Exactly. I'll explain why it works for some and what is the problem with that as well, right? So now, let me cover the counseling first. So what we are doing in counseling is, for example, we have cognitive behavioral therapy, we have dialectical behavior therapy. What we are doing in that is we are essentially working on the thoughts that are causing these emotions. So whatever, basic core thoughts are there. For example, I am not good enough. Life is not worthy. We try to change these thoughts. We don't work on changing your environment. It will never be about asking your mom to behave with you or asking your partner to behave better with you. It will always be you changing your own thoughts and beliefs and patterns of behavior, which is going to ultimately change your reality. That's where counseling works. It's not just motivation that today you'll come to me and I'll tell you, no, you can do it. Just go and write something nice in your paper. Just do some meditation. No, counseling doesn't work that way. It's a complex procedure where we are working on your thoughts, where we are working on your core beliefs, which are creating your identity and causing these problems. That's how counseling works. Right? And coming to the point, the self-medication that you talked about, right? It's quite common and it is the most disturbing problem that we have today, because the access to drugs and alcohol has literally, increased to more than 100 times in the last 10-20 years. If you remember, when we were little, only the villains in the movies used to smoke or drink. Right? That's how, when we were growing up, that was the movies that we saw. And now the coolest person in the movie will be the one who will be drinking. So this is how we have changed and brainwashed essentially the social perception of the children, right? What happens with alcohol or cannabis is they are working on dopamine in the brain. Initially, till the time you are not addicted, it is going to give you an artificial high. It will give you happiness. You feel that when you take it, you feel better. And it's quite common that they don't want to come to a psychiatrist. They are like, मैं शाम को जाके एक peg लूँगा and I'm fine. Right? That's the worst thing that you can do, because it's not going to cure your depression. That is for sure. Right? Second thing is you're getting yourself into an addiction, and now I have to treat both.
Yes.
It is quite common that the patient will not come to me for depression or anxiety. They'll come to me for solving these addictions. And when I'll ask them, why did you start? That's when, they come to a realization that, no, maybe I had anxiety disorder at that time. Maybe I had depression. To overcome that, I started. And of course, because see, with time, if you're not taking the treatment, the problem is going to increase. So that problem anyways is increasing. Plus you have created another problem for yourself where you have got yourself into an addiction as well. And addictions, mind you, are very difficult to treat. Depression is easy to treat. Addiction is like a lifelong illness now. Right? So that's the worst thing anybody can do to themselves.
Okay. So people should not create another problem by taking these substances. So if they are having some symptoms, if they are feeling that they need to go, they are feeling uncomfortable, there is something change in the personality, they can talk to a psychologist, they can have a counseling session initially.
Exactly. And see, it's not like you go to, for example, if somebody walks in my office, I recommend them medication and counseling. If they don't like my opinion, there are 100 psychiatrists sitting over there. Take multiple opinions. It's not like you have to just take the word of the person sitting in front of you. Absolutely. Take multiple opinions, see which one you are comfortable with and start with that one. But ultimately, this is the solution. So many times it happens, even with therapists, this happens, that you go to a counselor and somehow that, that it doesn't click you. It is very possible, especially in counseling, because you need a particular type of person with whom you can talk about your personal stuff. So that's completely okay. There are so many. Try as many as you can. Just like with any medical illness, you try different treatments to get better, right? If you're not getting better with the first one, it's the same thing, right? But you can't say that just because the doctor is bad, I won't take the treatment. You have to take the treatment. If you don't like the doctor, just change the doctor. If you don't like the counselor, change the counselor.
Exactly.
But get treated.
Yeah, and many times people just create the perception, oh, I went to a counselor and it was not satisfactory, so counseling doesn't work. So they create these perceptions. So they can try another counselor.
Yes.
Right? So
see, if we don't like a pizza at one place, doesn't mean we stop eating the pizza, right? We go to multiple places and find the best one. That's what. Especially with counseling, it does happen. Even the best counselors will have clients who don't gel with them. That's very, very possible. And that's okay. We are all humans.
Yeah.
We are all trying to do our best, right?
Yes, right, absolutely.
Yeah.
And one more question is, when as we are talking about the solution part, so the meditation, there are a lot of people who use the meditation in the depression. I just want to know
Right.
your thoughts, your views about this.
Right.
Is it helping? And if this is helping, then how it helps in the depression?
All right. Okay. So meditation, if I'll just talk about meditation, it's a wonderful thing. It's one of the best practices that anybody can adopt in their life. Okay? Everybody should do it. But then when you are clinically depressed, you already have severe depression and you have all these, negative thoughts going on in your body. Many times what happens, for some people it works again. It's not going to cure your depression. Let me clear you that. It's not going to cure your depression, but it is definitely going to make you feel better. But in a small chunk of people where these thoughts are really negative and they don't know how to manage them, what happens in meditation is you are blocking the outside world and going in your mind, right? But your mind is a chaos now. You have opened that Pandora box. Do you know how to manage it? That is the problem. So many of my patients come to me that, I was fine and then I was depressed, but I was okay. And when I started meditation, it became worse. Right? I've had cases, they go for these long-term depression, long-term meditation courses, 10-15 days of, isolated meditation. I've had cases who went into psychosis after that.
Yes.
Because when you're going inside, you see, you need somebody who can tame that monkey mind. Our minds are very, very complex, right? If you have the skills, go ahead. You can do it on your own. You learn what the counselor does, you do it to yourself, great. I'm not saying you absolutely just need a counselor. Train yourself and do it. But don't open something that you can't work on. Right? That is the problem with meditation. If you are mild to moderate, it's definitely going to help. But with some people, it happens. Of course, it's a smaller chunk of people, but it does happen that the minute they sit for meditation, the anxiety just blows up because they can't deal with what is coming to the surface now. So I recommend it, but not in all cases. For some people, I personally tell them that you need to do the breathing exercise and meditation. For some people, I have to stop them, that stop doing it because it's not helping.
Okay. If a person is having depression, it will be great if the person will be asking to the therapist or the psychiatrist with whom he is taking the medications or the therapies.
Yeah.
Perfect. So not always for all the people this meditation gonna work in depression.
No, definitely not.
Okay.
But if you are fine and you do meditation regularly, it will definitely help you with any mental health. It is preventive, definitely. But then if you are telling me in severe depression, you only do meditation and you will feel better, no, won't work that way.
Okay. So I have a question from the people who are studying psychology nowadays.
Okay.
Either they are in bachelor's or the master's of the psychology. So they have asked one question, which is, how do you see as a psychiatrist the support of a clinical psychologist and a counseling psychologist? How do you see that?
Right. So I am a psychiatrist and psychotherapist myself. I have degrees in psychological counseling as well. I have been trained in CBT per se. I absolutely vouch for it. None of my patients personally, as much as possible, I always suggest everyone that they need to start counseling along with medications. I don't only promote medication, but then of course some patients don't agree to it. That's a totally different case, but it's utmost important. See, medications are going to work on the neurotransmitters, yes, but then you go home, you're in the same situation again. How much will the medication help, right? So definitely clinical psychologists and counseling psychologists are utmost important. With me, it's mostly the clinical psychologists which get associated because they work with the mental health issues. But if there are milder problems or if there are, simple issues in life, the counselors work well, right? So definitely, in fact, I have my whole team of counselors who work in my office as well as online as well. So I refer patients, those who want online counseling, I refer it to the online counselors. I have, I think I have 4 now who come to the office and do the sessions for the patients. I personally do sessions as well, but I only keep the severe cases for because of the time constraints that I have. So only very severe cases where I know it will take a lot of, much more training. I keep them with myself. The mild cases or the moderate cases, I refer to the counselors and they take care of it. But of course, we are all a team. It's never like one is taking the decisions. They give me the feedback, I give them the feedback, and it's a cumulative approach. That's how we see the patient. We see it as a whole. It's not like I'll be just taking the call and do it. So I believe that it's utmost necessary that the counselors are a part of, any mental health issue that we are solving.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, Dr. Rui, I think your connection is a little bit unstable.
Can you hear me? I can hear you fine.
Yeah, I can hear you.
All right, sorry. Yeah.
Okay. No problem. So I just want to know one message you would like to give to the people who are out there, who are, starting becoming the counselor or the psychologist or the psychiatrist nowadays.
Right.
Any message to them?
Okay. So the message that I believe in is that, am I audible? I think there is some network issue. Please let me know if I'm audible or not. Hi. Some network issue. Am I audible now? All right. Okay. So the message that I want to, give to everyone, both the psychology students as well as if some patients are seeing or somebody who knows somebody has depression, it is that everything is in your mind. Okay. If our mind is not okay, nothing else will be okay. Our body depends on it. Our life depends on it. So it is very important that we take care of our mental health first before than anything else. For the psychologists, I believe that anybody who is working in the mental health field, whether it's psychiatrists, psychologists, or even psychiatric social workers, right? We are basically changing lives on a daily basis. It's a huge responsibility. We need to take it very seriously. For the psychologists, I would really recommend to get proper training. I always, whenever somebody walks in for a job interview, I don't care about the degrees that you have. I only care about your intention and the skill that you have. So any technique that you are comfortable with, whether it's CBT, DBT, whichever you are comfortable with, get thorough with it. Don't think of covering everything. You will not be able to help every type of patient. But make sure that the category that you pick, you get a niche that, these are the type of people that I want to help, and get thorough with that when that patient comes to you, you are the best, right? That is the approach that has to be there in mental health field. And with the patients, don't wait for it to become worse. Don't wait for everything to fall apart and then come to a counselor. You don't even need to be clinically depressed or anxious or bipolar or have a personality disorder to walk into the clinic. As long as you feel that you are feeling something different, as long as you feel that you're not able to manage your life or manage any aspect of your life, just go to a professional. Ask for help, ask for some tips and strategies that is going to make your life better. So, essentially you will be preventing yourself from having any type of illness and then suffering from it. That's what we need to do in these cases. That is my message, that don't wait for things to become worse. As soon as you feel something is changing, just get an opinion. Start the treatment if you want to. It won't hurt you to get the opinion. And nowadays, we have so much advancement. Earlier, you had to go to a clinic, which itself is stigmatizing that, you went to a psychiatrist. These days, we have online consultations. No one in the family even needs to know that you have consulted a psychiatrist or a counselor. Just go for an online session, meet them, talk to them, ask them what is happening. They'll be able to guide you. Take 5 opinions if you want. But then, just don't waste time and suffer in silence. That is the worst thing anyone can do to their own. Help is all around. Now there are so many websites coming up. Yourself, you have one, right? So why suffer, right? It's unnecessary. I feel so bad that, people suffering for 5. Recently, just 2 days back, I had a case. She's a 17-year-old girl. When she was 13, she started having depression. She had suicidal thoughts. Just nobody, took her to a psychiatrist. And now only, I think she had treatment for 3 weeks now. Right? 2 days back, I had her 4th session. Yeah. And she's better. Just within 4 weeks, she's better. And now the family literally, her mom was crying in front of me that why did I let my child suffer for this long if this is all that it took. All that it took, 2 pills and counseling, that's it. And within 4 weeks, your child is good to go. And she had been suffering for 8 years. Beautiful girl, so intelligent. And then she had, some 4 suicidal attempts in the history. That's what makes me feel the worst, right? So nobody should suffer, and definitely not suffer alone. We are all there. There are so many professionals now, and we are all there to help you. So come as soon as possible. Yeah. You're on mute, I think. I can't hear you. Sorry.
Absolutely. Thank you so much. So, now the help is all around, and people can come to us and they can have the counseling session easily now. Now it is available.
Yes, definitely.
Perfect. So, Dr. Ruhi, I would like to thank you because you have simplified that what is depression, how it occurs, and what are the various possible solutions. Now, we just gonna have a rapid fire question round.
Okay.
You just do not need to think much about the answer part, or you can answer it in just one word or one sentence only.
All right.
Okay. One thing you like about depression?
I like about depression is that it can be cured.
Okay. So react in one word or one sentence after listening this word. Therapy.
Okay. Oh, love it.
Perfect. Emotions.
They make you. They are basically who you are, or how you think, or who you are. So yeah.
They make you.
Yes.
Okay. Good. Life.
Yeah. Live it. Every moment. Don't waste it for anybody or anything. Live it.
Spirituality.
I believe it is essential for existence.
Great. Mental health.
Important, of course. That is the basis of your healthy life. So most important thing that you need to take care of more than your physical health, because if your mind is fine, even if you're 5 kgs overweight, it won't bother much.
Okay. One thing you do when you feel sad.
Oh, there are a lot of practices that you do, but one word is that I take a step back. There are a lot of relaxation techniques. Actually, this is not a one-word answer, but yes, over the years with practice, I have developed a system for myself that when I am low, I take out some 10-15 minutes. Gratitude is there, meditation, breathing exercises. Box breathing is a wonderful one, which I swear by. So I use some of these to get myself.
First one thing that you prefer generally.
Taking my time out. That is the most important. Taking that break and isolation to do all these things. Realizing that I need a break is most important.
Perfect. Sounds good. So one idea that changed your life.
Go for psychiatry.
Okay.
Yeah.
Great.
Yeah.
Best feedback or the appreciation you have ever got from any client?
That's not to be boasting, but yeah, many people have said that I have changed their lives. And one said that she started living after she met me. I think that was the moment I knew that I'm on the right path. Yeah.
Okay, great. One habit of you feel proud of in yourself?
That I'm very caring.
You're very caring.
I love that. Yes, I am
Caring
always
habit.
there for people. So I think it helps me and it makes me feel happy as well that I'm able to care for people. Yes.
Okay. So tell us 3 things you do to keep yourself mentally healthy on daily basis.
Okay. All right. So first thing is again meditation or deep breathing exercise for the relaxation part. Second is I organize a lot. So I have a lot of planners. So I keep my life sorted. I have 3-month plans which I want to work on. Then every week I plan and every day I plan what I'm going to do. Second thing is that. And third very thing is again taking that pause whenever is necessary. So 1 day a week I keep when I don't do anything related to work. It's just about me having fun. No important work that day. So I have made this that, instead of waiting for 4 months to get a holiday, 1 day a week, or sometimes if it's hectic, half day a week it's just about me. So whether it's with family or alone, that's my choice. But at that time, the world doesn't exist for me. It's just me and my fun.
Okay, great. Your me time is very, very important for you.
Yes, very important. Yes.
One biasness you want to remove from the world?
There are plenty, but yeah, especially with the mental health patients that we feel they are doing it on purpose. That is the worst thing that we can tell them, that it's intentionally, it's a lifestyle choice for them. It's not. They're not choosing this. Nobody will choose it.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, great.
That's
great.
what I would like to remove.
Perfect. Thank you so much. It was really wonderful. You
And
really
it was
shared
fun for me as well.
Yeah. And I do not have any hamper for you, but I can give you one smiley.
Oh, sweet. Thank you. Thank you so much. I need that a lot every day. Thank you.
Perfect. So one message for the people who are around. For example, there's someone who is suffering, who is saying, oh, I'm feeling a little bit sad, or things are changing with me. Because people do not listen. People are judgmental, right? So for that environment, for those people, what would you like to say?
It is your life, and you are as important as anybody else. If somebody doesn't understand, that is no reason to suffer. Just go and get the help that you need. That's all. Doesn't matter what others think.
Great. Thank you so much, Dr. Ruhi. It was really wonderful to have you on board with Counsel India. Thank you so much.
You're welcome. Thank you for having me. Even I enjoyed it thoroughly. Take care of yourself. Take care, everyone. Bye.
Thank you. Bye-bye. So, viewers, now I would like to tell you, I hope you got various views, various things about the depression. You have learned how it occurs, what are the various solutions, and most important thing we have learned is, do not wait. If there is something which is changing in your psyche inside you, try for help. Search out, reach to a counselor. It is really necessary, because it happens, there are various cases that are coming to us when they are worst. Why you are making them worst? So just be aware and approach a psychologist or the counselor or the psychiatrist. Now, I have a message for the people who are the psychologists, who are the psychology students, or the people who are from non-psychology background. Counsel India is offering you some, innovative training programs for you people. For the psychology students, we have some practical internship programs going on online nowadays. For the psychologists who are already working in the field, we have some updated things, updated courses, training programs for them. And most important, for the people who do not have any psychology background, we have some, counseling skill programs on different topics for them. We can cure the mental illnesses. There are majorly two ways, according to me. The one is, if a person is having the mental illness right now, we can give the counseling, therapies, and medication to that person, get solve the problem. And second is, we can prevent by increasing the mental illnesses. Because when we talk about the depression, on initial level, it is just emotional disturbance. Come on, there are certain things which are happening around you, and you are making some perceptions, you are creating your belief systems by that. And when it becomes strong, it comes in the form of the sadness and or the anger or various emotions, and then it leads to the depression. If you will be having a person around you, or you yourself is a person who know about the counseling skills, who know on initial level what are the emotions, what are the thoughts, so you can work as a primary counselor for the people. Because it is happening, especially in India. People are going to psychiatrists or the psychologists when the situation is out of control. So these mental health talks are especially to make you aware by that. Either if you want to help people, you can learn, you can understand those counseling skills, you can understand what is empathy, what is active listening, or there are various counseling skills that you can learn, and you can be the help for someone. This is what we are offering you. Okay, so all the very best. Thank you so much. It was wonderful to present our views, or Dr. Ruhi's views in front of you people. Thank you so much, and keep in touch. And definitely next time we're gonna have a different topic named addiction. So if you wanna ask anything, any question related to that, you can write to Counsel India, or any feedback or whatever, in whatever way you wanna connect with Counsel India. You're most welcome. Thank you so much. Have a great day. Bye bye.